Good evening and welcome to Newsmaker Live. We thank you very much for being part of our program this evening. And I'm very excited about this evening's program. It's one that we have wanted for a long time, and it's no fault of my guest that he has not been here earlier. I just wanted the right time to bring him on. And we thought for this month, February, we're celebrating independence. And when we talk about independence, we look at all aspects and all facets of independence. Economic independence, we look at intellectual independence. We look at independence of a state, sovereign state, St. Lucia being independent in gaining independence in 1979. I'd love to introduce my guest. He is Mr. Michael Chastanet, one of the most prominent businessmen on the island, and I dare say one of the most powerful men on the island.
I don't know about that part, Clinton.
Welcome, Mike. It's really nice to have you.
Thank you, Clinton. It's nice to be here.
And, you know, as I said, we have been planning this for a little while. We have had different conversations about you appearing on Newsmaker Live, but then I wanted the right time, and I think now is the right time for us to sit down and discuss and have a chat about, you know, everything, because I know you're astute when it comes to business. Also, you follow politics really closely. Yeah. You know about the economy because you're part of it as well.
Part of it,
you know, so a lot to talk about in the hour. Of course, later on we will take your calls. You can ask Mr. Michael Chastanet some questions, and he would be happy to respond. But let's go to the beginning of your life, business life. Not when you were born, but when you entered business. And we had a little chat before we came on air about shipping.
Right.
And it seems that shipping is still your passion. This is what you have a love for. You love the sea.
Yes.
I was reading an article that you wrote in the Business Focus magazine recently, the December issue, where you said that seawater runs in your veins.
Correct.
What do you mean by that?
Well, you know, the thing is, first of all, as a boy, we used to go over and spend a month over at Rat Island every August season. And we used to, swim across at a very young age. So I've really been around the water for quite some time. And it so happened that my father had a ferry, and I looked at that ferry moving one day, and I was really enthralled by what I saw. And that became my life. But then, having gone into shipping, you can well imagine spending 25 years and trading all over the world, from Argentina right up the coast, both on the Pacific side and the Caribbean side, you know, and between the islands, sailing. I love sailing around the islands, although I'm not a seaman per se, but I love the sea. And I mean, I've been swimming from the time I'm maybe 9 years of age until today. I mean, just recently, until an accident took place where I live, I used to swim to Rat Island every day and back, you know. So I do love the sea, yes. But now that I've had the sea for all these years, I now start to love the land.
you move it to drier territory.
Drier territory.
Now you said you mentioned it, that you were involved in shipping for a long time. You traveled all over the world shipping. Right. Tell us a bit about shipping and your expeditions.
Okay, I'm going to make it very short because we don't have a lot of time here because it moves very quickly, you know. I started inter-island shipping here in the Caribbean, and after a couple of years, I saw the scope was there, but it became a little too competitive and too crowded. And I moved on, I met a friend, and I moved to Puerto Rico in 1969 and opened a small office there, and spent 5 years there, learned a little bit of Spanish, and also saw a different world because it was an American territory. The Puerto Ricans are very nice people, but they got a little lackadaisical, and they didn't care to work too hard. And I was out to work hard. You know, when St. Lucians leave home, they always work harder outside anyway. And in 5 years, I really developed a different feel for shipping. It was not the same shipping that I knew down here. There were a lot of terms, nautical terms, and contracts to understand, drawing up agreements, and that really fascinated, because I always at one stage wanted to study law, but anyway, so it really interested me. And I spent about 5 years there, and I was quite successful there. And when I thought I had done well enough financially, I said, now I'm going to study law. So I actually got out of the shipping for a short period, like 3 or 4 months, went into university to FIU, started to do the law. And then one day I got a telephone call from my broker in Holland, and he said to me, "You made a mistake to get out of shipping." And I said, "No, I didn't." He said, "But anyway, if you are interested, you can go to Philadelphia. There's a nice ship coming up there." And it was an August weekend, Easter weekend, and I went up to Philadelphia, and I went back into the shipping. But prior to that, when I was in Puerto Rico, I went to Holland, as I told you, in 1966,
Right.
and I bought a first ship. And then in the time down there, I bought 4 or 5 more, and then I sold them. But I had a philosophy. The philosophy was that I had to run a ship for 3 years. It had to pay for itself in 3 years, and I had to sell it what I bought it for, and that was my profit. And I was able to do it. And I ended up owning about 31 ships, but never more than 3 or 4 at a time. And that was quite interesting, because, more than the money side of it, the people I met, the captains, a lot of my captains were expats who didn't want to live in Europe, and they came out. These were well-educated men who had been to university, spoke 3 or 4 languages. So I learned so much from those guys. It was unbelievable. Although they were working for me, I felt I was working for them because they could teach me so much. These guys used to read. I had one particular captain, when he left Brazil going to Canada on a 10-day trip, he would read 750 pages in a book, They were quite intelligent people. And, and not only, as I said, the shipping business was one thing, but actually meeting the people, going to Europe, buying a ship in Europe, meeting all the brokers in Europe. I mean, I bought ships in every country, Germany, Norway, Holland, Sweden, Spain. I even went and bought a ship, believe it or not, once up in the North Pole. I bought 2 ships there. Yeah, a guy died and he left a ship to 2 ships to his daughter, and I bought the ships up there and then had them docked up in the fields up in Norway, and then brought them out. But I'm not a captain. I always brought them out. I did a lot of movement by land. Meeting insurance brokers, surveyors, and I could give you so many exciting incidents that took place in my shipping career, but it would be too much tonight, So as I said, we'd go on the periphery of it.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But in terms of shipping, how has shipping changed when you were involved in shipping and what we see right now?
Okay, I'll start from zero. First, people used to build ships here in St. Lucia. We built them in the Conway where the government buildings are. It would take 2 years to build a ship. The next stage was, as I told you earlier, because the European government wanted the shipping industry to progress, they advised the ship owners after 15 years they should sell the ships and get new ships and get more modern ships. And many people were not aware that these ships were available. So that, as far as the West Indies is concerned, changed all dimensions of the shipping business. So the shipping business had to die because, again, it's supply and demand and cost. So you could get a much bigger ship for a quarter of the price what you could do it for down in the Caribbean, better built and everything else, okay? But then, to every aspect there's a plus. So by getting those better ships and carrying the cargo between the islands, you carried a much better product, because when you had the wooden ships, you were leaking, wetting people's cargo and all that nonsense. So now you had those steel ships, they worked perfectly. So that changed. Then after all my years in shipping, as I told you earlier, a lot of people who came into the business were doing relatively well. But I realized one thing, that the big ship owners in Europe who would leave Europe with a 50,000-ton ship, say go to Brazil or Argentina, and they would take back lumber and different commodities back, say, halfway up. That return cargo could pay for their fuel. But when many many West Indians got into the business that I first went to in 1966, it came rather prolific. So then these people said, hey, that's enough. These guys are dipping into our business too much. So they set about building bigger ships and produced millions of containers. So whereas it was lucrative to get 2,000 tons of cargo from, say, Brazil to Puerto Rico or wherever you want to go to, or Mobile, Alabama, these guys would then put a container down there, and if you wanted 1 ton of cargo, they put it in, and they consolidate, put it into a one, and they built ships that burnt something called bunker C, which is 1/3 the price of what the oil was. So we couldn't compete with them. But I saw that coming. And when I was about 48 years of age, I said to myself, guys, that's it. I'm out of that business. I left it and I came back to St. Lucia because as a young guy, my father worked at the customs all his life. And that's, you know, many people think and they hear the name chastanet. We're not associated with Naval and Chastanet. My father was on the poorer side. My father was just a customs officer for 35 years with 10 children. I was the last of 10 children.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said, you know, that's it. If ever I can go away and be successful one day, I really want to come back to St. Lucia and do the things I want to do in St. Lucia. So while I was in all those countries, I looked at what was working, things like shopping centers. I was always amazed when I went into a shopping center. I come to St. Lucia, there's no shopping center. You go to a warehouse, you see a nice clean warehouse. You go and you want to put up a building, you see in New York, you see steel structures going up. I come to St. Lucia, they're building with columns. I see them casting a floor, they're putting bamboo underneath and they're putting all kind of wood. I see them putting a steel plate on top, put 4 inches of concrete. And I say, but if these people are doing that, why aren't we doing that down here? You know?
Yes.
So, you know, and what I did is, as I told you earlier, talking to Ed Bradley for 60 minutes, he said one day when he came to St. Lucia that the harder he worked, the better his luck became. And I found that that's a true saying. And what I did was, I'm a jack of all trades and master of none. So what I did is every time I went into a business, I made sure that there were people who knew the business, and I honestly believe in partnerships. Now partnerships can have their drawbacks, but they also have their pluses. And today, you know, I can only say for me, partnerships have worked brilliantly, and I would really recommend it. But you have to choose your partners. I know, and you know, and because unity is strength.
So I mean, you took these examples from overseas, and you came back home, and you said, okay, you know what? We're doing things the primitive way,
Correct.
the ancient way, the traditional way. But there are more efficient ways of getting stuff done.
Correct.
And that is why you launched a number of your business ventures. You know, Caribbean Metals.
Correct.
The shopping.
The shopping centers, I started warehousing here in a very big way, and it's been very successful, you know, yes.
Very, very, very interesting. We're speaking here with entrepreneur, businessman, one of the most powerful men on the island, Michael Chastanet. I know he's a little uncomfortable with me saying that, but it's true. We'll be back after this break, and we'll continue our discussion with him on very many issues. We're talking politics when we come back. We're talking the economy. We're talking business. Stay with us. Don't go away.